The council chamber was colder than usual. It was always cold, the kind of chill that seemed to seep into bones rather than flesh. But today there was something different. A tension sat in the air, palpable yet unspoken, as if the very walls understood the gravity of the moment, but chose silence. Lurok stood at the edge of the room, his large eyes tracing the lines of the holographic projection floating above the central table. The image, a small blue planet revolving slowly in space, captured the council's attention, as if it were something new. Yet it wasn't. Earth had been observed for millennia, a mere curiosity among a galaxy of greater wonders. But now, the council's gaze had shifted. He watched as the other delegates whispered amongst themselves, their voices low, but their words cut through the stillness. "Primitive," one of them murmured, eyes fixed on the planet. "Their technology barely scratches the surface of what we achieved ages ago." "Yet they thrive," another added, tone sharper, "against odds we might not have survived. Look at their history. Wars, destruction, constant chaos. Still, they rise." Lurok listened, taking in the undercurrent of skepticism. He had heard it before. The council had always viewed Earth as insignificant, a planet teetering on the edge of self-destruction, yet clinging to survival in ways they could not fully understand. There was a stubbornness to these humans that unsettled the council. They had seen such traits before in species who had, in time, grown too ambitious, too confident. The image of Earth continued to spin slowly, the council members studying it with a mixture of disdain and curiosity. There was no fear, not yet. The council had always believed in their own superiority, but in moments like this, Lurok wondered if they were too blind to see what was right in front of them. "Lurok," a voice called from the head of the table, jolting him from his thoughts. The speaker was Kelrith, one of the oldest members of the council, his voice carrying the weight of centuries. "You have spent time observing this world. What do you make of them?" Lurok stepped forward, his long limbs moving with a precision that betrayed his nervousness. He had been watching Earth for over 50 years, though in the grand scheme of things it was a blink. His role had always been passive, a silent observer, cataloging their wars, their technological advancements, their endless struggle against themselves. "They are resilient," he began, choosing his words carefully. "They thrive in environments that should have destroyed them long ago. Their advancements, though slow compared to ours, are not to be underestimated." There was a pause, the room growing still again. Kelrith tilted his head, studying Lurok with eyes that seemed to pierce through him. "Resilient?" Kelrith echoed. "Is that what you would call them? A species that constantly wars with itself, that teeters on the edge of annihilation?" Lurok met his gaze, unflinching. "It is exactly because they stand on the edge that they survive. They have adapted to conflict, to scarcity. They do not flourish in peace like we do. Conflict is their environment." A murmur passed through the room, the delegates exchanging glances. Lurok knew what they were thinking. The council had always prided itself on its stability, its peace. There had been no wars among their kind in millennia. Their advancement was built on harmony, cooperation. The very idea of a species thriving on conflict was alien to them. "They are dangerous, then," a voice from the far end of the table said. Lurok recognized the tone sharp, dismissive, belonging to a council member who had long advocated for Earth's subjugation. "If what you say is true, they will be a threat to our order." Lurok hesitated. "Not yet." Kelrith leaned forward, his fingers tapping lightly against the surface of the table. "But you believe they will be?" It wasn't a question. Lurok could feel the weight of the council's gaze on him, waiting for an answer that would dictate the course of action. "I believe they have potential," he said slowly. "But that potential is not fully realized. They are still divided, still consumed by their own internal struggles. For now, they pose no threat." "For now," Kelrith repeated, his voice softer. There was a long pause, the council deep in thought. Lurok's mind drifted to the planet below, the small blue sphere spinning in the vastness of space. He thought of their cities, their empires, rising and falling like waves against the shore. And yet, no matter how often they crumbled, they built again, He had seen it too many times to dismiss it as mere chance. The Council had always believed in progress through unity. They had spread their influence across the galaxy, bringing peace and prosperity to countless worlds. But Earth was different. Their progress wasn't built on peace. It was built on something far more chaotic, something the Council had long forgotten. "Send the envoys," Kelrith finally said, his voice cutting through the silence. "We will observe them more closely. If they show signs of aggression, we will act." Lurok felt a knot tighten in his chest. He had seen what happened when the Council acted against a species they deemed dangerous. It rarely ended well for the species in question. "They have been silent for too long," Kelrith continued, his gaze fixed on the spinning image of Earth. "It is time we remind them of their place." As the meeting adjourned, Lurok remained behind, his thoughts heavy. The Council had always been quick to judge, to act. It was their strength and their flaw. They saw things in absolutes: peace or conflict, friend or foe. But Earth didn't fit into those neat categories. They were more complex than the Council realized. He thought of the humans he had observed over the years. Their capacity for destruction was matched only by their capacity for creation. For every war, there was a new invention, a new idea. For every failure, a new hope. They were not like the other species the Council had encountered. They were different. Lurok stepped to the observation window, looking out at the stars. Somewhere, out there, Earth continued its slow, chaotic dance, and he couldn't shake the feeling that the Council was making a mistake. They thought they understood the humans. They thought they could control them, contain them. But Lurok had seen something in them that the others hadn't. It wasn't their technology, their weapons, or even their resilience. It was something deeper. They had a will, an unshakable drive to survive, to push beyond their limits. And Lurok wasn't sure if the Council was prepared for what would happen when that will was fully realized. The envoys were dispatched a week later. Lurok watched as their ships disappeared into the vast expanse of space, heading toward Earth. He knew it was only a matter of time before the Council got the answers they were looking for. But he couldn't help but wonder if they were asking the wrong questions. He turned away from the window, the weight of the decision pressing down on him. Earth was changing, evolving in ways the Council couldn't predict. And soon, very soon, the galaxy would realize that they were not dealing with just another primitive world. They were dealing with something far more dangerous. And it had been silent for far too long. General Sylvia O'Neill sat in her office, her fingers drumming softly against the dark, polished wood of her desk. It was a subtle movement, almost absent-minded, but it betrayed a tension that she had long learned to suppress. Across the room, a holographic map of Earth's territories flickered quietly, casting a soft glow that danced across her features. To anyone watching, she appeared calm, collected, but that was the art she had mastered over decades: a perfect veneer, a carefully constructed facade that mirrored the very strategy Earth had adopted on the galactic stage. The reports had just come in. The Galactic Council's envoys were en route. Their interest had been piqued, as expected. She allowed herself the briefest of smiles. The Council believed they were dealing with a fractured world, a planet held together by little more than outdated technologies and fragile alliances. Earth had played its role well, giving them just enough to see without ever revealing what lay beneath the surface. Sylvia leaned back in her chair, her eyes narrowing slightly as she reviewed the intelligence. Earth's military might was not in question. It was its visibility that had always been the trick. Publicly, the world was still divided into nations: America, Russia, China, the European Union, all outwardly competing, posturing for dominance. It was a system that seemed on the verge of collapse, an illusion carefully crafted and maintained by Sylvia's hidden council, a council that controlled far more than the world's leaders knew. They called themselves the Directorate. Few had ever heard the name, and even fewer understood its purpose. They were the true architects of Earth's future, a silent body that orchestrated global movements from the shadows. Every war, every diplomatic maneuver, every technological advancement was part of a greater design, and Sylvia O'Neill was at the center of it all. A soft chime interrupted her thoughts. Sylvia's assistant, a young man named Jonas, appeared in the doorway. "General, the council is ready," he said, his voice low but steady. Sylvia nodded, rising from her chair with deliberate precision. She adjusted the collar of her military uniform, smoothing the fabric as if preparing for battle. And in a way, she was. This meeting, like all others, was a battlefield. But here, the weapons were words, and the stakes far higher than any single conflict. Earth's future rested on the delicate balance she and the Directorate maintained, appearing weak enough to be dismissed, but not so weak as to invite conquest. She entered the adjoining room, a dark, circular chamber where holographic screens lined the walls, each one displaying the face of a Directorate member. There were no formal titles here, no names spoken aloud. Each voice carried equal weight, but all eyes turned to Sylvia when she entered. Her presence commanded attention, not through intimidation, but through the sheer gravity of her silence. "We've received confirmation," one of the figures said, his voice calm, deliberate. "The envoys will arrive in 3 days." Sylvia took her seat at the center of the room, folding her hands in her lap as she considered the implications. "Good," she replied, her voice measured. "Their timing aligns with our expectations." Another figure leaned forward slightly, the flickering light of the screen casting shadows across his face. "Do you believe they suspect anything beyond the surface?" Sylvia shook her head. "No, they see what we want them to see: disunity, weakness, internal struggle. To them, Earth is still a backwater world, on the verge of collapse." "And what of their envoy?" A female voice cut in from the far left. "Do we know who they are sending?" "Not yet," Sylvia admitted, "but we must assume they will send someone capable of uncovering more than we intend to show." There was a brief silence. The Council understood the stakes as well as she did. If the Galactic Council suspected Earth's true strength, if they learned of the technologies hidden beneath the surface, it could provoke an immediate response. Earth wasn't ready to reveal itself, not yet. Timing was everything. One of the council members spoke again, his tone more cautious this time. "Our defenses are secure." Sylvia nodded, her mind already running through the layers of protection that surrounded Earth's hidden military facilities. "Yes. Our technologies remain undetectable to their current sensors. The Directorate has ensured that what little they do see will appear antiquated at best." The room fell silent again, the weight of their collective secrecy pressing down on them. There was something about silence, Sylvia mused. It was as much a weapon as any advanced technology. The Council thrived on it. Earth's greatest asset, in her eyes, wasn't its weapons or its military power, it was its ability to hide, to let others think they were insignificant. That, she knew, was the key to survival. "The question," another voice finally said, breaking the silence, "is whether we will have to act. If their envoy digs too deep, we may have to consider preemptive measures." Sylvia leaned forward, her gaze sharp. "We will not act rashly. The Council underestimates us because we have given them no reason to fear. That is how we survive. If we make a move now, we risk exposing everything." There were nods of agreement, but she could sense the underlying tension. The Directorate had grown increasingly wary in recent years, especially as Earth's advancements had accelerated. There were factions within the Council that wanted to push forward, to reveal Earth's strength, to take the galaxy by surprise. But Sylvia had always advocated for restraint. Power wasn't in the display, it was in the waiting, in the control. She had learned that long ago. Still, there were moments when she felt the weight of the decisions they were making. The delicate balance they maintained between secrecy and survival. One wrong move, one slip, and Earth could become a target, crushed before it had the chance to rise. That was the burden she carried, the burden of knowing more than anyone else about the fragile future of her planet. As the meeting drew to a close, Sylvia stood and addressed the Council one last time. "We will maintain our current course. The Galactic Council will see only what we allow. And when the time is right, we will be ready." There was no need for further words. The holographic screens flickered off one by one, leaving Sylvia standing alone in the dimly lit chamber. She took a deep breath, feeling the tension in her shoulders ease slightly. Another battle fought, though no one outside these walls would ever know. Jonas appeared in the doorway again, his face carefully neutral. "General, is there anything else you need?" Sylvia shook her head. "No, Jonas. That will be all." He gave a small nod before disappearing once more, leaving Sylvia alone with her thoughts. She returned to her desk, her eyes drawn to the holographic map of Earth still flickering on the wall. The planet looked peaceful, serene even, but Sylvia knew better. There were cracks beneath the surface, cracks that she and the Directorate had spent years trying to repair, to hide. She let out a slow breath, her mind turning to the days ahead. The arrival of the envoys would test everything they had built. Earth's facade of vulnerability would be scrutinized, and it would take all of her skill to maintain the illusion. But Sylvia was confident. She had spent a lifetime preparing for this, mastering the art of control. And control, she reminded herself, was everything. Sylvia O'Neill stood at the observation deck overlooking the sprawling base, her hands clasped behind her back. The room was quiet, save for the faint hum of distant machinery. Below her, Earth's hidden military forces moved with purpose, though to any outsider, it would appear as nothing more than an unremarkable facility. It was this careful orchestration of reality and illusion that had kept Earth safe for so long. But today, the game shifted. The envoy from the Galactic Council had arrived. Lurok, the alien diplomat sent to deliver the Council's message, was an imposing figure. His species, tall, lean, with skin that shimmered in the light, had long been known for their skills in negotiation. But behind Lurok's calm exterior, Sylvia sensed something more. Something dangerous. She had read the Council's briefings on Lurok, studied his methods, and knew he was not just here to talk. This was a test, one that could change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. A soft chime echoed through the room, and Jonas appeared at her side. "General, the envoy is ready." Sylvia nodded, her expression unchanged. "Lead the way." The walk to the conference room was a silent one, but in her mind, Sylvia weighed every possible outcome of the upcoming conversation. This was more than just a diplomatic exchange. It was a confrontation of power, one that would determine Earth's fate. As she entered the room, she saw Lurok standing by the large oval table in the center. His eyes, a deep, unblinking blue, locked onto her with the precision of a predator assessing its prey. Sylvia offered him a nod, gesturing toward the table. "Envoy Lurok," she said calmly, "welcome to Earth." He inclined his head slightly, his voice smooth but edged with authority. "General O'Neill, thank you for receiving me." They both took their seats, and for a moment, the room seemed to settle into an uncomfortable stillness. Sylvia let the silence hang, allowing Lurok to make the first move. The alien diplomat leaned forward, folding his long fingers together. "The Galactic Council," he began, "has been observing Earth for some time. Your people's progress has not gone unnoticed." Sylvia raised an eyebrow, keeping her tone neutral. "We appreciate the Council's interest." Lurok's gaze sharpened. "The Council, however, is concerned. For a planet of your level, you have remained unusually silent in galactic affairs. We find this troubling." There it was, the first hint of a threat, wrapped in diplomacy. Sylvia's expression remained unchanged, but inside, her mind raced. She had expected this, but now she had to navigate it carefully. "Earth is a peaceful planet," she replied. "We have chosen to focus on internal development rather than external conflicts." Lurok's lips curved into a thin smile, though it didn't reach his eyes. "The Council has a different view. Peaceful, perhaps, but also secretive. The Council believes that Earth is hiding something." Sylvia leaned back slightly, her eyes narrowing just enough to suggest curiosity, not suspicion. "What exactly does the Council believe we are hiding?" For a moment, Lurok said nothing. His eyes studied her, as if weighing her words against his own assumptions. When he spoke again, his voice was lower, more deliberate. "The Council has long maintained balance in the galaxy. Every world, every civilization must adhere to the same principles. Those who seek to disrupt that balance face consequences. Sylvia didn't blink. Is that a warning, envoy? It is a choice, Lurok said, his tone now cold. The Council extends a simple offer: submit to its authority, or prepare for the consequences of defiance. The words hung in the air like a noose, tightening with each passing second. But Sylvia was no stranger to pressure. She had been preparing for this moment for years, studying every possible angle, every potential threat. Now, she had to decide how far to push, how much to reveal. Earth was not the weak, divided world Lurok believed it to be, but letting him know that too soon would invite conflict before they were ready. Sylvia met his gaze, her expression unreadable. Earth has no interest in defiance, envoy. But we are also not inclined to submit to external control. We believe in our sovereignty. Lurok's smile faded. Sovereignty is earned, General, and Earth has yet to prove it is deserving of such a claim. There was a subtle shift in the atmosphere, an unspoken challenge between them. Sylvia knew that Lurok was testing her, probing for weakness. But she had been trained to navigate these waters, to give just enough without exposing the full extent of Earth's strength. Earth has always believed in cooperation, Sylvia said, her voice steady. But we will not be coerced. If the Council wishes to engage with us, it must do so as equals. Lurok's eyes darkened, and for the first time, Sylvia saw the mask slip. The Council's envoy was no longer playing the role of diplomat, he was delivering a threat, and he wanted her to know it. The Council has seen many worlds rise and fall, he said quietly. It knows the difference between strength and arrogance. I suggest you learn that difference before it's too late. Sylvia's heart pounded in her chest, but her face remained impassive. She couldn't let him see the cracks in her armor. This was the moment that would define Earth's next steps, whether they remained in the shadows or were forced into open conflict. We appreciate your advice, she said finally, but Earth will chart its own course. Lurok stood, his tall frame casting a long shadow across the room. He looked down at her, his eyes filled with a quiet fury. Then the Council will act accordingly, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Do not expect leniency. With that, he turned and walked toward the door, his footsteps echoing in the silence. Sylvia watched him go, her mind already turning over the implications of their exchange. This was no mere diplomatic posturing. The Council had delivered an ultimatum, and it was only a matter of time before they made their next move. As the door closed behind Lurok, Jonas reappeared at Sylvia's side. What do you think, General? Sylvia didn't answer immediately. She rose from her chair and walked over to the large window overlooking the base. In the distance, the clouds were gathering, dark and heavy, casting long shadows over the landscape. The Council won't back down, she said quietly. They believe they hold all the cards. Jonas hesitated. Do they? Sylvia turned, her eyes sharp. Not yet, but they will soon. Jonas nodded, though his expression remained uncertain. He, like many others, had only seen glimpses of Earth's true capabilities. Even within the Directorate, there were those who didn't fully understand the scope of what they had built. But Sylvia knew. She had overseen every development, every technological breakthrough, every military advancement. And now, the time was coming to reveal what they had kept hidden for so long. But not yet. Sylvia knew that timing was everything. If they revealed their strength too soon, it would provoke an all-out conflict, one that Earth might not survive. But if they waited too long, the Council could tighten its grip, leaving them with no choice but to fight on unfavorable terms. It was a delicate balance, one that required patience, restraint, and above all, control. Sylvia had spent her life mastering that control, learning to keep her emotions in check, to think several steps ahead of her opponents. But even she felt the weight of what was coming. The door chimed again, and this time it was one of her senior advisors, a man named Rook. His face was grim as he approached. General, we've just received a transmission from the Council. They're mobilizing their fleets. Sylvia nodded, unsurprised. Of course they are. Rook hesitated. What are your orders? For a moment, Sylvia said nothing. She stared out at the gathering storm, her mind racing through the possibilities. There were still options, still ways to navigate this without descending into open warfare. But those options were dwindling, and soon she would have to make a choice. We prepare, she said finally. Let them come. We're ready. General Sylvia O'Neill stood alone in the quiet of her quarters. The room was simple, almost Spartan, save for a few personal effects and old book she'd carried with her through every deployment, a photo of her family long since gone, and a small silver ring that had once belonged to her mother. These were the things she allowed herself to keep, the only relics of a life that had, over time, faded into the background of her existence. She stared at the ring, rolling it between her fingers, her mind wandering to a place she hadn't visited in years. Before she had become the iron-willed strategist, before Earth's survival rested on her shoulders, Sylvia had been someone else entirely. A young officer, eager and driven, but not yet tempered by the sacrifices that came with leadership. She had believed, in her early days, that the world operated on simple rules: strength won battles, and strategy won wars. But she had been wrong. The lessons came hard and fast. The first was the loss of her closest friend, Sarah, during a botched mission that Sylvia had led. It had been an ambush, one that she hadn't anticipated, and Sarah had paid the price for her miscalculation. The guilt had stayed with her, carved deep into her soul, shaping her into the woman she was now. It was a lesson that had taught her one thing above all: there is no room for error. She had spent years mastering control of herself, her emotions, and the forces around her. Every decision, every action was weighed, calculated, and executed with precision. It had made her the leader she was today, but it had also taken from her the person she had once been. The weight of it sat heavy on her now, more than ever. The Galactic Council's warning echoed in her mind. They believed Earth was weak, fractured, and disorganized. That belief was their greatest mistake. Sylvia had made sure of that. But as she prepared for the inevitable conflict, she couldn't help but feel the quiet stirrings of doubt. She had always presented a calm, composed front, but beneath the surface, there was a war within herself, a battle between the person she had to be and the person she once was. A soft knock on the door pulled her from her thoughts. It was Jonas. "General, the Council is holding a meeting in 30 minutes. They're ready to discuss our next steps." Sylvia slipped the ring back into its small box, closing it with a soft click. "I'll be there." She moved past Jonas and out of the room, leaving behind the part of herself she rarely allowed others to see. The war room was a stark contrast to Sylvia's private quarters. Screens lined the walls, each one displaying streams of data, enemy fleet movements, strategic calculations, and simulations of potential scenarios. At the center of the room stood a large holographic display, currently projecting an image of the solar system, with Earth at its core. Jonas, Rook, and a handful of senior military advisors were already gathered around the display when Sylvia entered. She joined them, her eyes immediately drawn to the data on the screen. "We've begun mobilizing our defensive units," Rook began, his voice steady but carrying an edge of tension. "All systems are operational, and the first wave of drones has been deployed along the outer perimeter." Sylvia nodded, her gaze shifting to the holographic display. "What about our hidden assets?" Rook exchanged a glance with Jonas before responding. "The Helios network is active and ready. We've positioned our primary satellite array in a blind spot outside the Council's sensor range. They won't see us coming." The Helios network. It had been one of Earth's greatest achievements, a vast, interconnected system of advanced satellites capable of launching devastating energy-based attacks from space. It was one of the many technologies that had been developed in secret, hidden from the eyes of the galaxy. Sylvia had overseen its creation personally, ensuring that Earth's true strength remained concealed until the right moment. "We'll need to be cautious," Jonas added. "If we reveal too much, too soon, the Council will adapt." Sylvia listened, her mind racing through the possibilities. The Galactic Council was no ordinary enemy. They were advanced, experienced in the art of war, and they held the advantage of numbers. But what they didn't have, what they couldn't possibly understand, was the level of ingenuity Earth had developed in the shadows. "Activate the network," Sylvia said finally, her voice calm but firm. "But keep our primary systems offline until they make their first move. We'll let them think they've caught us off guard." Rook nodded and relayed the order to his team. The holographic display shifted, zooming in on the Earth's orbit, where the Helios satellites lay dormant, waiting for the signal to strike. Later that evening, Sylvia found herself alone again, standing on the observation deck overlooking the base. The stars stretched out above her, an endless expanse that made Earth feel small, insignificant. And yet, it was here on this small, blue planet that the future of the galaxy would be decided. The weight of that responsibility pressed down on her, as it had for years. But now, as the storm approached, she felt it more acutely than ever. She had spent her life preparing for this moment, building Earth's defenses, forging alliances in secret, and crafting a plan that would allow them to survive. But the cost had been high. Sylvia knew the sacrifices that would have to be made. She had already made many, but more would come. She had learned to live with it, to accept that leadership came with a price. But there were nights when the quiet moments alone were the hardest. When the doubts crept in, and the ghosts of her past reminded her of the lives she had lost along the way. Her thoughts drifted back to the Helios network, to the other technologies that Earth had developed in secret. The Council had no idea what was coming. They saw Earth as a fractured, primitive world, incapable of standing against the might of the galaxy's greatest civilizations. But they were wrong. Earth had learned to hide its strength, to mask its power behind a facade of vulnerability. It was a lesson Sylvia had taken to heart long ago: never show your full hand until the moment you're ready to strike. But the price of that deception was isolation. The hidden alliances Earth had forged within the solar system were tenuous at best, built on fragile trust and mutual necessity. The other planets had their own agendas, their own reasons for aligning with Earth. And while those alliances would hold for now, Sylvia knew that trust was a currency that could be spent quickly in times of war. She turned away from the window, her mind returning to the task at hand. There was no time for doubt, no room for hesitation. The Galactic Council was moving, and Earth had to be ready. Sylvia had spent her entire life preparing for this moment, but now that it was here, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was slipping through her fingers. She had always prided herself on control over herself, her decisions, her emotions. But control came at a cost, and Sylvia had paid it willingly. She had given up so much of herself in service to something greater. And now, as the first sparks of conflict ignited, she wondered if there was anything left of the person she had once been. Back in the war room, the mood was tense. Jonas and Rook were poring over the latest reports, their faces drawn and serious. The Council's fleets were on the move, their massive warships cutting through the void like silent predators. Earth's defenses were strong, but the Council's power was not to be underestimated. "Helios is fully operational," Rook reported, his voice steady. "We're ready to engage at your command, General." Sylvia nodded, her eyes scanning the data on the screen. "Hold for now. Let them come closer." She could feel the weight of every decision pressing down on her, but she had learned to carry it. This was what she had been trained for, what she had prepared for. Every moment, every choice was calculated, precise. There was no room for error. As the Council's fleets drew nearer, Sylvia felt a strange sense of calm settle over her. The storm was coming, and she was ready. The first warning sirens echoed through the base, and the lights in the war room dimmed as the emergency protocols activated. The Council's forces had made their move, and Earth was about to face its greatest test. But Sylvia O'Neill stood at the center of it all, her eyes fixed on the display before her, calculating, waiting. The Council had made their threat, and now it was time for Earth to respond. She had spent her life in preparation for this moment, and now, as the storm approached, she knew that Earth's strength was not in its weapons or its technology, but in its ability to endure, to adapt, and to survive. The Helios network hummed to life, and Sylvia's voice cut through the tense silence. Engage. The Council's warships hung in the cold expanse of space, an armada of sleek, ominous vessels casting long shadows over the stars. The silence in the command chamber aboard the lead ship, Erethan, was suffocating as Lurok studied the latest intelligence reports with growing unease. He stood tall and composed, but there was something underneath his calm exterior, something gnawing at him that he couldn't ignore. Earth had done nothing unexpected, yet it was their very predictability that had begun to unsettle him. They had maintained the guise of a fractured world on the brink of submission, but the reports filtering in from the Council's reconnaissance units hinted at something deeper, something concealed. Their technology, their defenses, none of it matched the image Earth had projected for so long, and that bothered Lurok. "Sir," one of his officers approached, breaking the silence, "we've detected fluctuations in Earth's communications network. It appears they're rerouting data through encrypted channels we hadn't previously mapped." Lurok's gaze shifted to the holo display, where the network patterns were illuminated. A small anomaly, but significant. It was a sign of preparation, a sign that Earth was not as vulnerable as it pretended to be. The Council had been watching Earth for decades, long enough to believe they understood its limitations. Yet this was something new and dangerous. "Continue monitoring the fluctuations," Lurok ordered, his voice calm but edged with a growing suspicion. "Increase the patrols around their satellites. I want to know the moment anything shifts in their defense grid." He turned his back to the display, staring out at the endless black beyond the viewport. Somewhere out there, on that distant blue world, the truth was buried under layers of deception. His task was to uncover it. Back on Earth, Sylvia O'Neill was navigating a battlefield of a different kind. The council chambers were filled with a low hum of conversation, a quiet tension that rippled through the room. Representatives from Earth's various factions, the military alliance, the global consortium, the technocracy sat around a circular table, their faces tight with concern. The council's looming threat had sparked a wave of fear and uncertainty, and Sylvia could feel it in the air. "I still don't see why we're continuing this charade," one of the technocrats, a man named Daver, spoke, his voice laced with frustration. "We have the technology, the firepower. Why not just reveal our strength now and crush any hope they have of victory?" Sylvia met his gaze, her expression unreadable. She had expected this. There were always those who believed brute force was the only answer, who didn't understand the value of patience, of control. "And what then?" Sylvia responded, her tone even. "We reveal our hand too early, and we lose the element of surprise. The Council isn't a minor threat. They've conquered entire systems, civilizations far more advanced than our own. If we strike without proper preparation, we risk provoking a full-scale war we aren't yet ready for." Daver bristled, but said nothing more. The room fell silent again, but the tension hung thick in the air. Jonas, who stood at Sylvia's side, spoke up, his voice calm but firm. "The Council believes we're weak. That's their greatest mistake. They're underestimating us, and we need to use that to our advantage. Once they make their move, we'll be ready." Sylvia nodded subtly, grateful for Jonas's steady presence. He had been with her since the beginning, one of the few she trusted implicitly. He understood the delicate balance they had to maintain, the facade of vulnerability they projected to the outside world, and the immense power they held in secret. But even within Earth's leadership, that balance was difficult to maintain. There were factions that questioned her strategy, that saw the Galactic Council as an immediate threat that needed to be neutralized with force. Sylvia understood their concerns, but she knew the cost of acting too soon. "We have to hold the line," she said, her voice cutting through the room's tension. "When the time comes, we'll strike, but not before." The murmurs of dissent quieted, though she could still feel the unease among the council members. They weren't soldiers. They hadn't seen what she hadn't felt the weight of the decisions that came with leadership in times of war. She couldn't afford to lose control, not now, not when everything hinged on perfect timing. Lurok watched as his fleet drifted closer to Earth's orbit. From this distance, the planet looked so peaceful, so deceptively innocent. But his instincts told him otherwise. He was no fool. He had seen what happened to civilizations that underestimated their enemies, that dismissed subtle warnings, and there were signs now small, but unmistakable that Earth was not as it seemed. "Sir," another voice broke the stillness, this time from his second-in-command, Kreneth. "Our intelligence team has intercepted communications suggesting Earth has deployed a covert defense system. It's incomplete, but advanced." Lurok turned slowly, his eyes narrowing. "Show me." Kreneth brought up a projection of the intercepted data. It was fragmented, but enough to indicate Earth had developed a system beyond the Council's initial assessments. A system designed not just for defense, but for strategic counter-offensive capabilities. "They've been hiding their true strength," Kreneth muttered, half to himself. Lurok nodded, his mind racing. The pieces were falling into place, and with each new revelation, his unease deepened. This wasn't just about Earth's survival anymore. It was about the Council's control and how fragile that control was becoming. He had served the Council for decades, believing in its mission, in its supremacy. But now, as he stood on the precipice of another war, Lurok began to question. Why had Earth hidden its strength for so long? What were they waiting for? More importantly, why hadn't the Council seen it? The weight of those questions pressed down on him, and for the first time in his long service, Lurok found himself doubting not the enemy, but his own leadership. In the depths of Earth's military command, Sylvia stood before a massive tactical screen, her eyes scanning the shifting data with cold precision. The Council's ships were moving closer, their formation tightening as they prepared for their next move. "We need more time," Jonas said quietly from beside her, his voice barely a whisper. Sylvia didn't respond immediately. She had known from the beginning that time was their greatest weapon and their greatest enemy. The longer they could maintain the illusion of weakness, the more control they could exert over the Council's actions. But the moment was fast approaching when that illusion would have to shatter. Her fingers traced a path across the tactical display, highlighting the outermost edge of the Council's fleet. "Prepare for Phase 2, she said finally, her voice low and measured. "Increase our surveillance on their communications. I want to know the moment they make their next move." Jonas gave a curt nod and moved to relay the orders. Sylvia remained where she was, her mind working through the complex layers of strategy that lay ahead. Every decision she made now had to be perfect. There was no margin for error. But the stakes were not just Earth's survival, it was the future of the entire solar system, and possibly beyond. The hidden alliances they had forged, the secret technologies they had developed, it was all part of a larger plan. One that had been set in motion long before the Council had even known Earth existed. But now, as the pieces began to shift, Sylvia could feel the weight of those decisions pressing down on her. The time for deception was nearing its end. Soon, Earth's true strength would be revealed. But even as she prepared for the inevitable confrontation, Sylvia couldn't shake the feeling that something was still missing. Something vital, hidden beneath the surface of it all. Lurok stood in the dim light of his command chamber, his eyes fixed on the image of Earth spinning slowly in the void. His orders were clear, his mission set. But the doubts continued to creep in, unbidden and unwelcome. There was more to this world than the Council had seen, and as Lurok prepared to carry out his next orders, he wondered if the Council's arrogance would be its downfall. The quiet hum of the command center was abruptly shattered by the blaring alarms. Earth's orbital defense system had detected the incoming fleet and armada of alien ships, sleek and intimidating. The Galactic Council had finally decided to test the resolve of the planet they had underestimated for so long. Sylvia O'Neill's fingers flew across the holographic console, issuing orders with a calm precision that belied the storm brewing outside. Her face, normally composed, now betrayed a trace of grim determination. The time for deception had ended. Earth's true capabilities would be revealed, but only partially. "Status report," Sylvia demanded. her voice sharp and authoritative. "Enemy fleet has entered the outer atmosphere," Jonas replied, his tone steady. "They're deploying reconnaissance drones and preparing to engage." Sylvia's eyes narrowed as she surveyed the tactical display. The enemy fleet, while imposing, had made one critical error: they had underestimated Earth's defenses. Her plan was straightforward: demonstrate enough power to send a clear message, but keep the full extent of their capabilities concealed. "Deploy the defensive grid," Sylvia ordered. "Initiate Phase 1 of our countermeasures." Outside, the sky darkened as the defensive grid activated. Thousands of small, fast-moving drones and satellite arrays emerged, their sleek forms cutting through the atmosphere with precision. They formed a formidable wall, their energy shields flickering to life as they prepared to face the incoming alien ships. As the alien fleet drew closer, Lurok stood on the bridge of the Erethan, his gaze fixed on the tactical display. The plan had been simple: a show of force to test Earth's defenses and gauge their true capabilities. What he saw, however, was something entirely different. The alien fleet's initial salvo was met with an unexpected response. Earth's defensive grid absorbed the impact with ease, the energy shields shimmering but holding firm. A barrage of counterattacks erupted from Earth's defenses, precise and devastating. Alien ships were disabled, their shields flickering as they struggled to keep up with the barrage. Lurok's eyes widened in disbelief. The defensive measures were far more advanced than the Council had anticipated. The alien strategist, once confident, now struggled to maintain composure as the situation evolved. "Sir, we're encountering more resistance than expected," reported Krineth. "Earth's defenses are far beyond what our intelligence indicated." Lurok clenched his jaw, watching the unfolding battle with growing concern. The calculated restraint he had anticipated was absent. Instead, Earth was revealing its strength in a carefully controlled demonstration, a display of tactical genius that left him questioning everything he had believed. Inside Earth's command center, Sylvia observed the unfolding battle with a measured gaze. The first phase of the defense was designed to test the enemy's response, to gauge their tactics and adapt accordingly. As the alien fleet struggled to break through, she knew it was time to escalate. "Prepare the next phase," Sylvia instructed. "Initiate the electromagnetic pulse cannon. We'll give them a taste of our offensive capabilities, but keep it contained." The pulse cannon, a massive device hidden within Earth's orbital defenses, roared to life. A brilliant wave of energy surged outward, striking a portion of the alien fleet. Ships were disabled in an instant, their systems overwhelmed by the sudden surge. The once cohesive alien formation broke apart as chaos ensued. Lurok watched, his sense of disbelief growing. The coordinated strike was not just a show of power, it was a masterful display of tactical restraint. Earth was proving that it could strike decisively, yet still hold back. It was a strategy designed to send a clear message without revealing the full extent of their capabilities. "Adjust our approach," Lurok ordered, his voice tight with urgency. "We need to reassess our strategy. Earth is more formidable than we realized." As the alien ships regrouped and prepared for another assault, Lurok found himself wrestling with a profound realization. The battle was not just about military might, it was a test of perception and restraint. Earth had demonstrated a level of control that transcended mere firepower. In the midst of the conflict, Sylvia took a moment to reflect on the battle. Her tactical decisions had been executed with precision, yet the ethical implications weighed heavily on her mind. The line between controlled power and outright aggression had blurred in the heat of combat. "Jonas," Sylvia said quietly, her gaze still fixed on the tactical display. "Do you ever question the morality of our approach? The fine line between demonstrating strength and crossing into outright aggression." Jonas looked at her, his expression thoughtful. "It's a difficult balance. We're showing our strength, but we're also protecting our people. The morality of it all, it's something we have to grapple with." Sylvia nodded, her mind racing through the implications of their actions. The confrontation with the Galactic Council had exposed the complex nature of power, the ethical dilemmas that came with wielding it. Her decisions had been calculated, but they were not without consequence. Back on the bridge of the Erethan, Lurok's resolve was being tested. The battle had revealed a level of strategic mastery he hadn't expected. Earth's tactical display was a powerful statement, and Lurok couldn't ignore the implications. As the alien fleet withdrew to regroup, Lurok remained at his post, deep in thought. The battle had not been won or lost, but it had altered his perception. The Galactic Council's belief in its own supremacy had been challenged, and Lurok was left to grapple with the ramifications. The confrontation had revealed more than just Earth's military strength. It had exposed the delicate balance between power and restraint, and the moral questions that arose from wielding such power. Sylvia watched as the alien fleet retreated, her mind already planning the next steps. The battle had been intense, but it was only the beginning. The confrontation with the Galactic Council had set the stage for a larger conflict, one that would require careful navigation of both strategy and morality. As the tension in the command center began to ebb, Sylvia felt a profound sense of responsibility. The decisions made in the coming days would shape not just the fate of Earth, but the future of interstellar relations. And as she prepared for what lay ahead, Sylvia knew that the battle was far from over. The true test would be in how they continued to wield their power, balancing strength with restraint, and navigating the complex moral landscape of warfare. The atmosphere within the Galactic Council chambers had shifted. Once filled with a confident air of supremacy, it now bristled with tension. News of Earth's surprising display of strength had sent ripples through the Council, fracturing the previously unified front. Hushed conversations and urgent meetings replaced the once routine discussions of galactic trade and diplomacy. Councillor Tyranak, known for his hardline approach, slammed a data pad onto the table. "This is unacceptable. Earth's display was a direct challenge to our authority. We must act swiftly to reassert our dominance." Opposing him, Councillor Lurok, a proponent of caution, leaned forward. "We mustn't be rash. The information we've received suggests Earth's power is not fully revealed. If we provoke them further, we risk igniting a conflict we're not prepared for." The debate between immediate retaliation and strategic patience intensified, each faction presenting its arguments with vehemence. The chamber, usually a place of measured discussions, had become a battleground of competing ideologies. The Council's unity was fracturing under the strain of its own arrogance. Amid the discord, Lurok stood to the side, his expression a mask of neutrality. The intense scrutiny of the Council had placed him in a precarious position. His role as envoy had initially been clear-cut, but the recent revelations about Earth had complicated his standing. "Councillor Tyranak," Lurok interjected cautiously, "the display of strength we've witnessed is indicative of more than mere military capability. Earth has managed its reveal with precision. There is strategic intent behind their actions, and our response must be measured." Tyranak's gaze hardened. "You speak of restraint, but our authority is being tested. We cannot allow such insolence to go unchallenged." Lurok's internal conflict was evident. He had observed Earth's resilience firsthand, and it had left a profound impact on him. The political maneuvering within the Council had forced him to confront his own beliefs about power and its limitations. As the arguments continued, Lurok found himself reflecting on the nature of their power. The Council had prided itself on its invulnerability, its control over lesser civilizations a point of pride. Yet, Earth's unexpected strength had exposed a crack in their facade, a vulnerability that challenged their understanding of galactic dynamics. In the private chambers of the Council, away from the heated debate, Lurok engaged in a more personal reflection. The room was sparse, its walls adorned with maps of the galaxy and holographic projections of interstellar routes. He sat at a desk, reviewing the tactical data and reports from the recent confrontation. His thoughts were consumed by the growing respect he felt for Earth. The display of tactical restraint and strategic depth demonstrated by General Sylvia O'Neill had shattered his preconceived notions. Earth was no longer the primitive world he had been led to believe. It was a civilization with its own form of mastery, one that had to be reckoned with. Perhaps, Lurok mused aloud, the greatest weakness of power is its inherent blindness. We've allowed ourselves to overlook potential threats, focusing instead on our own perceived invincibility. The philosophical weight of his realization was profound. The Council's arrogance had led them to dismiss Earth as inconsequential, a decision that now seemed increasingly short-sighted. Lurok's respect for Earth's resilience had become intertwined with his doubts about the Council's approach. As the Council session drew to a close, the atmosphere remained charged. The factions had not reached a consensus, and the internal strife had only deepened. The debate had revealed the fragile nature of their unity, a chink in the armor of their collective arrogance. In the aftermath, Lurok's position became more precarious. His growing respect for Earth and his reservations about the Council's strategy had placed him at odds with many of his colleagues. The tension within the Council was mirrored by the tension he felt personally. The chambers, now empty, echoed with the murmurs of discontent and the weight of unspoken doubts. Lurok remained behind, staring at the holographic display of Earth's recent military actions. The image of the alien fleet retreating from the confrontation lingered in his mind. The philosophical questions that plagued him were not easily answered. The limits of power and the fallibility of empires were not concepts easily reconciled with the Council's long-standing beliefs. The arrogance that had once defined their rule was now a source of internal discord, exposing vulnerabilities that had been long hidden. Lurok's reflection was interrupted by the arrival of a communication from Counselor Lurok. "Lurok, we need to discuss our next steps. Your insights into Earth's capabilities are crucial." Lurok responded with a nod, his mind already racing through the implications of their discussions. The debate over how to handle Earth had revealed the deep-seated flaws in their perception of power. As he prepared to meet with Lurok knew that the coming decisions would shape not only the future of Earth, but the very nature of the Galactic Council's authority. As he left the chamber, Lurok's thoughts were heavy with the weight of his responsibilities. The philosophical implications of the Council's arrogance and the nature of power had become a central focus. The internal strife within the Council was a reflection of the broader challenges that lay ahead. The future of Earth and the Galactic Council was now a complex web of political maneuvering, ethical dilemmas, and the evolving nature of power. Lurok's role had evolved from mere envoy to a pivotal figure in a rapidly changing galactic landscape. The cracks in the Council's facade were just the beginning, and the journey ahead would require careful navigation of both strategy and morality. The Galactic Council convened once more, a subdued murmur of anticipation threading through the chamber. The atmosphere was thick with the weight of recent events. The Council's inability to reach a consensus had left the galaxy in a state of heightened uncertainty. On Earth, General Sylvia O'Neill prepared to unveil a facet of their power that had long been cloaked in secrecy. The time had come for a calculated revelation. The scene on Earth was meticulously orchestrated. A grand demonstration was planned, a presentation that would be as much a statement of power as it was a philosophical reflection. The selected location was a secluded desert expanse, chosen for its stark, unblemished canvas. From this vantage, the demonstration would not only be visually striking, but also symbolically powerful. As the alien envoys observed from a safe distance, a sprawling array of advanced weaponry was revealed. Earth's technological prowess unfolded in a sequence that was both awe-inspiring and unsettling. The devices themselves were marvels of engineering, sleek, polished, and precise. Each piece of technology, though designed for destruction, radiated an unsettling elegance. The first to be showcased was the Celestial Lance, a beam weapon of formidable range and accuracy. It was a sleek, metallic construct, its surface shimmering in the desert sun. The lance was activated with a restrained flourish, sending a pulse of energy that cut through the sky, striking a distant target with pinpoint precision. The demonstration was not one of indiscriminate violence, but of controlled, deliberate power. The target, an old mining rig, disintegrated into a plume of debris, the explosion a silent testament to the weapon's potential. Sylvia watched from a distance, her face a mask of composed severity. She understood the implications of this display, how the council would interpret it, and how it would reflect on her own leadership. The demonstration was more than a mere show of strength. It was a reflection on the nature of power itself. In a secluded observation room, Sylvia found a moment of solitude. The desert stretched out before her, its vast emptiness a stark contrast to the controlled chaos she had just orchestrated. Her thoughts turned inward, grappling with the weight of her responsibilities and the burden of wielding such power. The burden of control, Sylvia mused quietly, is not just in the ability to destroy, but in the restraint required to wield it. Power can be a seductress, luring those who hold it into the abyss of tyranny. Our challenge is not merely to possess power, but to govern it with wisdom. Her reflections delved into the philosophical essence of leadership. The responsibility of such advanced technology was immense, and the fine line between defense and oppression loomed large. Earth's capabilities were vast, yet the temptation to use them for unchecked dominance was ever present. Sylvia's role was to navigate this precarious balance, ensuring that power remained a tool for protection rather than a weapon of subjugation. Meanwhile, within the Galactic Council chambers, Lurok observed the transmission of the demonstration with a mixture of awe and apprehension. The sight of Earth's weaponry was both a revelation and a challenge. The elegance of the technology contrasted sharply with the destructive potential it embodied. For Lurok, the demonstration was a reflection on the broader implications of power. Lurok's thoughts wandered to the nature of control. The Council had long perceived itself as the ultimate arbiter of order in the galaxy. Yet, Earth's display of advanced technology had introduced a new variable, one that questioned the absolute nature of their authority. The sophistication of Earth's weaponry was a reminder of the fragility inherent in their own position. As Lurok contemplated the demonstration, he was drawn to a philosophical reflection on destiny and control. What is power if not a reflection of destiny's hand, he pondered. We navigate through the currents of influence, shaping our fate as much as it shapes us. The burden of wielding such influence is not in its scope, but in its application. The Council's view of Earth was evolving from that of a primitive backwater to a formidable presence in galactic politics. The subtle beauty of Earth's technology, coupled with its potential for destruction, presented a dichotomy that challenged conventional perceptions of power. In the hours following the demonstration, Sylvia convened a meeting with her senior officers. The room was somber, the gravity of the day's events reflected in the silence that hung heavy in the air. Sylvia addressed her team with a mixture of resolve and introspection. "We have shown them what we are capable of," Sylvia began. "But the true measure of our strength lies not in what we reveal, but in how we choose to wield it. The responsibility of our power is immense, and we must approach it with the wisdom and restraint that our position demands." The officers nodded in agreement, their expressions a blend of admiration and concern. The demonstration had been a powerful statement, but it had also set the stage for an uncertain future. The delicate balance between defense and aggression would be tested in the coming days. Sylvia's reflections on the nature of power were not just philosophical musings, but guiding principles for her leadership. The fine line between defense and tyranny was a constant consideration, one that would shape the decisions she made in the days ahead. As the sun set over the desert, casting long shadows across the expanse, the remnants of the day's demonstration were gradually concealed. The elegance of the technology had been revealed, but its deeper implications remained. The true challenge lay in the moral and philosophical questions that had been brought to light. The delicate balance between power and responsibility, control and restraint, was a theme that resonated deeply with Sylvia. The burden of leadership was not merely in the possession of power, but in the wisdom required to use it justly. As Earth's advanced weaponry became a new element in the galactic equation, the philosophical reflections on its role would continue to shape the path forward. The Galactic Council's emergency session was called with a sense of urgency that rippled through the very structure of the Council itself. The vast chamber, a circular expanse of polished metals and softly glowing panels, was filled with representatives from every corner of the galaxy. The atmosphere was charged with an electric tension, the result of recent events that had shaken the council to its core. Lurok arrived at the council chamber, his presence a stark contrast to the calm demeanor he usually maintained. His mind was a battleground of conflicting loyalties and burgeoning doubts. The weight of Earth's technological revelation had changed the parameters of his mission, forcing him into a position he had not anticipated. As he approached the central podium, his steps were heavy, each one echoing the gravity of his thoughts. The council's assembly was divided. Some factions, driven by recent intelligence and the impressive display of Earth's advanced weaponry, were advocating for immediate, decisive action. Their voices were sharp, insistent. They viewed Earth's demonstration not merely as a warning, but as a challenge, one that demanded a response to reassert the Council's dominance. In contrast, other members less eager for conflict pleaded for a more measured approach. They argued that the unexpected sophistication of Earth's defenses required further investigation before any rash decisions were made. Their position was not without merit, given that Earth's display had shown a level of technological prowess and strategic foresight that surpassed initial expectations. Lurok's role was to mediate these opposing views. Standing before the council, he began his speech, choosing his words with careful deliberation. His voice, though steady, carried an undercurrent of personal struggle. "Esteemed council members," Lurok began, "the information we have received regarding Earth's military capabilities demands our utmost consideration. The display of advanced technology, while impressive, should not precipitate an immediate escalation. We must recognize that Earth's strength is not merely in their weaponry, but in their strategic acumen and resilience." A murmur of dissent spread through the chamber. Some members were unmoved, convinced that any delay was a risk to their authority. They argued that showing restraint could be perceived as weakness, emboldening Earth to act further against the Council's interests. Lurok continued, his gaze sweeping across the faces of his peers. "We must also acknowledge that our current understanding of Earth's full capabilities is incomplete. An invasion, at this juncture, would not only be premature but could potentially backfire, given the extensive preparations we've observed. Earth is more formidable than we initially assessed, and their response to aggression could be far more devastating." As Lurok spoke, he could not ignore the growing unease within himself. His initial certainty about Earth's inferiority had been eroded by the reality of their strength and strategic sophistication. He was caught in a web of ideological conflict, his loyalty to the Council increasingly at odds with his growing respect for Earth's resolve. Back on Earth, General Sylvia O'Neill's day was marked by a flurry of tactical meetings and strategic discussions. The recent revelation of Earth's advanced weaponry had set the stage for a critical phase of preparation. Sylvia's leadership, though impressive, was not without its challenges. Her decisions were scrutinized not just by her military advisors, but also by political factions within Earth's government. In the heart of a secure military bunker, Sylvia reviewed the latest intelligence reports with her senior staff. The room was a hive of activity, with holographic displays flickering with data and analysis. Sylvia's focus was unwavering, her demeanor calm despite the gravity of the situation. "We have achieved a strategic advantage," Sylvia stated, her voice firm. "But this does not mean we can afford complacency. Our preparations must continue with precision. We are not merely defending our position, but preparing for a potential confrontation that could shape our future." Her words were met with nods of agreement, but there was an undercurrent of tension. Some within her ranks were concerned that the Council's response might escalate beyond their expectations. Sylvia's ability to maintain control and confidence was both inspiring and isolating. She had to balance the need for transparency with the imperative to keep certain details concealed. One of her advisors, Colonel Marcus Lee, approached with a new set of tactical data. "General, the simulations indicate that the Council is considering a full-scale invasion. They are likely to launch an assault to test our defenses further." Sylvia studied the projections with a scrutinizing gaze. "We anticipated this possibility," she said, "and our preparations are designed to counter such moves. However, we must also be prepared for any unforeseen actions." The key to our success lies not just in our technological capabilities, but in our strategic flexibility. The days that followed were marked by a palpable sense of impending conflict. The Galactic Council's internal debates continued, with factions wrestling over the appropriate course of action. Lurok, while caught between his duty and his respect for Earth's resilience, sought to provide a voice of reason. His arguments for caution were met with varying degrees of acceptance, but the Council's unity was increasingly fractured. On Earth, the sense of anticipation was equally intense. Sylvia's meticulous planning and strategic foresight were evident in every aspect of the preparation. The cityscape, normally bustling with activity, was now quieter as military units were mobilized and defensive measures were fortified. The public remained unaware of the full extent of the preparations, their everyday lives untouched by the escalating tensions. In the shadows of this escalating situation, Sylvia found moments of reflection amidst the relentless activity. The nature of power, control, and the responsibility of leadership weighed heavily on her mind. She knew that the decisions made in the coming days would not only determine the immediate outcome of the impending conflict, but also shape the future of Earth's place in the galaxy. As the storm gathered on the horizon, both the Galactic Council and Earth prepared for the inevitable clash. The stakes were high, and the outcome uncertain. The intricate dance of diplomacy, strategy, and power continued to unfold, each move and counter-move setting the stage for what was to come. The vast expanse of space between Earth and the Galactic Council's fleet was eerily silent, a deceptive calm before the impending storm. The two forces faced each other in a strategic standoff, the Council's ships arrayed in a formidable line, their sleek hulls shimmering against the backdrop of distant stars. Earth's defensive forces, though not as numerous, were poised with a confidence that spoke of careful preparation and unspoken resolve. Lurok's vessel hovered in the periphery, his gaze fixed on the scene unfolding before him. He had witnessed the transformation of Earth from a seemingly insignificant planet to a formidable military power. Now, as the tension built to a critical point, he found himself grappling with the gravity of the situation and his own place within it. On Earth, General Sylvia O'Neill stood at the helm of the command center, her mind a sharp instrument of strategic precision. The battlefield, though distant, was visible through holographic displays that flickered with tactical data and real-time updates. Sylvia's calm demeanor belied the intensity of the moment, her focus unwavering as she prepared for what was to come. The first move came not with the roar of weapons, but with a subtle, calculated action. Earth's forces engaged in psychological warfare, launching a series of precision strikes that targeted not just the Council's fleet, but their sense of invulnerability. Each maneuver was designed to unsettle, to challenge the Council's assumptions about Earth's capabilities. The Council's fleet, initially confident in their overwhelming superiority, was thrown into a state of disarray. Ships that had once moved in disciplined formations now faltered, their responses disjointed and erratic. The precision of Earth's strikes, coupled with the strategic placement of decoy targets, created an illusion of unpredictability and danger. Lurok observed with growing unease. The psychological tactics employed by Earth were both sophisticated and disorienting. The Council had anticipated a direct confrontation, but Earth's approach was a reminder that power could be wielded not only through sheer force, but through manipulation of perception and emotion. As the engagement unfolded, Sylvia's command was marked by a series of deliberate, focused actions. Her strategies were not merely defensive, but designed to provoke, to force the Council into making missteps. Every maneuver was a calculated risk, each decision a step in a larger game of psychological warfare. In the midst of the conflict, Lurok's internal struggle reached a critical juncture. He had been tasked with observing and reporting, yet the more he saw of Earth's capabilities and the resolve of its leaders, the more he questioned his own allegiance to the Council. The stark contrast between the Council's arrogance and Earth's measured strength forced him to confront difficult questions about loyalty and the nature of power. Lurok's reflections were punctuated by the intensity of the battle. He watched as Earth's forces, guided by Sylvia's strategic brilliance, executed maneuvers that showcased their tactical prowess. Each strike, though precise, was a testament to a deeper understanding of warfare, a recognition that power was not just in the weapons, but in the mind. The philosophical implications of the conflict were not lost on Lurok. He pondered the nature of power and control, the ethical dimensions of warfare, and the responsibilities that came with immense strength. The battle had become more than a clash of fleets. It was a confrontation of wills, a test of character and principle. Sylvia's actions were a reflection of her own inner conflict. As the battle raged on, she was acutely aware of the burden she bore. The precision of her tactics, the restraint she exercised, were not just strategic choices, but reflections of a deeper understanding of the nature of power. She knew that to reveal too much, to act too aggressively, could shift the balance in ways that were difficult to predict. In the midst of the conflict, Lurok found himself increasingly drawn to Sylvia's leadership. What had initially appeared as a challenge to be overcome now seemed like a profound demonstration of strength and resilience. He began to see Sylvia not as an adversary, but as an equal, a leader whose actions were guided by principles that transcended simple notions of victory and defeat. The battle continued, each side adapting to the evolving tactics of the other. The Council's fleet, though still formidable, was increasingly uncertain. The psychological impact of Earth's precision strikes had taken its toll, undermining the Council's confidence and forcing them to reassess their approach. Lurok's internal crisis deepened. He was caught between his duty to the Council and his growing respect for Earth's resilience. The conflict had become a mirror reflecting his own doubts and questions. What was the true nature of power? How did one balance strength with responsibility? And what was the cost of pursuing victory at any cost? As the engagement reached its climax, Sylvia's tactical brilliance was evident in every move. The battle was not just a demonstration of military might but a statement of principle. Her actions were a deliberate challenge to the Council's assumptions, a reminder that power could be wielded with both precision and restraint. In the aftermath of the battle, as the Council's fleet retreated to reassess, Lurok's thoughts were consumed by the events he had witnessed. The conflict had not only tested Earth's capabilities, but had also forced him to confront his own beliefs and allegiances. The clash of wills had revealed the complexity of power and the profound implications of leadership. The stage was set for the next phase of the conflict, one that would further test the boundaries of power and resolve. The psychological and philosophical dimensions of the battle had left an indelible mark on both sides, shaping the course of the conflict and the fate of those involved. As the dust settled and the galaxy awaited the next move, Lurok's internal conflict was far from resolved. The clash of wills had become a journey of self-discovery, a quest to understand the true nature of power, loyalty, and the responsibility of leadership in a universe where every action had far-reaching consequences. The galaxy seemed to hold its breath as the latest developments unfolded. The standoff that had defined the last few cycles now reached a new dimension. Earth, having previously concealed its true capabilities behind a facade of restrained power, now prepared to reveal the full scope of its technological advancements. The Council, once brimming with confidence, faced a turning point that threatened to upend their assumptions and reshape the balance of power. The Galactic Council's Grand Chamber was a hive of tense activity. Council members, their alien forms reflecting both impatience and trepidation, gathered around the central holosphere. The holographic display, previously a simple tool for navigation and communication, now shimmered with unprecedented data and visuals. Earth's full arsenal was about to be revealed, and the anticipation was palpable. In contrast to the Council's anxious gathering, General Sylvia O'Neill stood in her command center with an air of composed determination. The walls around her were lined with monitors and displays, each flickering with data that represented the culmination of Earth's technological prowess. Sylvia's eyes were fixed on the central screen, where a message was being prepared to be sent to the Council. This message was not merely a declaration, but a carefully crafted statement designed to alter the course of the conflict. As the message transmitted, the Galactic Council's members watched in stunned silence. The display showcased Earth's most advanced technologies, spacecraft with energy shields that defied conventional understanding, weapons capable of precise, devastating strikes, and defense systems that could neutralize the most formidable of attacks. The sheer scale and sophistication of Earth's technological achievements were laid bare, defying the Council's expectations. Sylvia's voice, calm and measured, resonated through the broadcast. To the esteemed members of the Galactic Council, you have seen but a fraction of what we have chosen to reveal. We do not seek conflict, but we will not stand idly by as you underestimate our strength. The balance of power is not a mere illusion. It is a reality that demands respect. The impact of Sylvia's message was immediate and profound. The Council's members exchanged glances of disbelief and apprehension. The confidence that had characterized their previous sessions was replaced by a palpable sense of unease. Earth was no longer seen as a primitive backwater, but as a force capable of challenging the Council's dominance. Lurok, standing at the periphery of the Council's chamber, watched the scene unfold with a growing sense of clarity. His internal conflict, which had been simmering beneath the surface, now erupted into a full-blown crisis. The realization that Earth's strategy was far more complex than he had previously understood struck him with a jolt. The Council's arrogance and presumption had blinded them to the true nature of their adversary. As the Council convened in hurried discussions, Lurok's thoughts raced. He grappled with the implications of Earth's reveal, recognizing that the conflict was no longer a simple matter of military might. It was a chess game on a galactic scale, with each move carrying profound consequences. The tactical brilliance of Earth's strategy was evident in every display of power, revealing a depth of foresight and cunning that Lurok had underestimated. In the command center on Earth, Sylvia's demeanor remained composed, but her mind was a whirlwind of strategic calculations. She knew that revealing the full extent of Earth's capabilities was a double-edged sword. It was designed to shift the balance of power, to force the Council to reconsider their approach, but it also heightened the risk of escalation. Sylvia's next move was not just about showing strength, but about demonstrating control. The message was clear: Earth was not to be underestimated, and any further aggression would be met with a response that would challenge the Council's supremacy. The implications of this revelation extended beyond the immediate conflict. It was a statement of intent, a declaration that Earth's place in the galaxy was not to be diminished. Lurok's thoughts were consumed by the unfolding events. He saw Sylvia not just as a military leader, but as a strategist whose actions were guided by a deep understanding of the nature of power and conflict. Her calculated brilliance was evident in the way she had navigated the complex interplay of diplomacy and warfare. Lurok's respect for her grew, but so did his sense of disillusionment with the Council's approach. The Council's internal debates were intense and fraught with tension. Some members called for immediate retaliation, their fear driving them to advocate for a decisive strike. Others, more cautious, urged a reevaluation of their strategy. The balance of power had shifted, and the Council's response would determine the future trajectory of the conflict. As the debate raged on, Lurok's mind was a battleground of conflicting emotions and thoughts. He had been an observer, a pawn in a larger game, but the revelation of Earth's full capabilities forced him to confront the limitations of his own beliefs and allegiances. The Council's arrogance had led them to underestimate Earth, but it was clear that the true nature of power was far more complex and nuanced. Sylvia's strategic maneuvering had transformed the conflict into a test of wills and resolve. The revelation of Earth's technological advancements had reshaped the battlefield, but the war was far from over. The tension between Earth and the Council had reached a critical juncture, and the next moves would determine the fate of both sides. In the aftermath of the revelation, Lurok faced a moral and philosophical crossroads. The conflict had exposed the fallibility of power and the dangers of underestimating an opponent. The intricate dance of diplomacy and warfare had revealed the true nature of leadership and the weight of responsibility that came with wielding immense power. As the Council's chamber buzzed with activity, Lurok's thoughts were focused on the future. The turning point had come, but the road ahead was fraught with uncertainty. The balance of power had shifted, but the ultimate outcome of the conflict was still to be determined. Lurok's internal struggle, Sylvia's calculated brilliance, and the shifting dynamics of the galactic stage set the stage for a resolution that would challenge the very foundations of power and perception. The galaxy awaited the next move in a game where every action carried profound implications. The turning point had been reached, and the war was poised on the edge of a new phase, one that would test the limits of strategy, strength, and the nature of power itself. The galaxy seemed to hold its breath as the latest developments unfolded. The standoff that had defined the last few cycles now reached a new dimension. Earth, having previously concealed its true capabilities behind a facade of restrained power, now prepared to reveal the full scope of its technological advancements. The Council, once brimming with confidence, faced a turning point that threatened to upend their assumptions and reshape the balance of power. The Galactic Council's Grand Chamber was a hive of tense activity. The alien envoys, with their various hues and forms, flitted about in hurried conferences. The Council's central holosphere, previously a benign tool for communication, now emitted a soft, blue glow as it projected Earth's hidden arsenal. The chamber was suffused with an uneasy silence as the gravity of what was about to be revealed became apparent. Councillor Tiren, a tall, serpentine figure with eyes like molten gold, glanced at the holo display with a mix of disbelief and apprehension. "This cannot be. They've been hiding these capabilities all along." His statement hung in the air as a myriad of responses bubbled up from the surrounding members. The Council's leader, an imposing entity known simply as Zyra, raised a hand, calling for quiet. Zyra's form was an intricate lattice of light and shadow, a living embodiment of the Council's prestige and power. "We must hear what Earth has to say. This is not a time for panic." In stark contrast, back in the command center on Earth, General Sylvia O'Neill was meticulously overseeing the final stages of her message. The control room was filled with the hum of advanced machinery and the soft beeps of data streams. Sylvia's team worked with practiced precision, their movements a testament to their training and the gravity of the moment. Sylvia's gaze remained fixed on the central screen. She had always prided herself on being a master strategist, but this moment required more than just tactical acumen. It required a deep understanding of the psychological and philosophical dimensions of power. She was acutely aware that this revelation would shift the narrative of the conflict, forcing the Galactic Council to reassess their position. As Sylvia's message began to transmit, the display across the council chamber showcased Earth's technological marvels. The images were vivid, almost tangible in their detail. The advanced spacecraft, with their sleek, almost organic designs, floated in a void of space. Their energy shields shimmered with a luminescent force, and the weapon systems were revealed with a precision that spoke of both artistry and devastation. The Council watched, transfixed, as the presentation highlighted not just the firepower of Earth's technology, but its strategic elegance. Sylvia's voice, calm and resonant, cut through the tension. "You see now what we have chosen to reveal. We are not a planet to be dismissed or underestimated. Our strength is not merely in our weapons, but in our ability to make measured, strategic decisions." The effect of Sylvia's message was immediate and profound. The council members, who had once exuded confidence, now wore expressions of shock and doubt. The display had not only demonstrated Earth's technological prowess, but also hinted at a broader, more intricate strategy that had eluded the council's scrutiny. Lurok, standing at the edge of the council chamber, felt the weight of the moment. The revelation of Earth's full capabilities had shattered his preconceptions. He had been a witness to Earth's potential, but had failed to grasp its full implications. The Council's reaction, a mix of disbelief and fear, mirrored his own inner turmoil. As the Council convened in hasty, heated discussions, Lurok's thoughts were consumed by the realization that Earth's strategy was far more complex than he had anticipated. The intricate balance of power had been disrupted, and the next moves would be critical. The debate among the council members was fraught with tension as they grappled with the new reality. Councillor Vekar, a burly figure with a multitude of eyes, slammed his hand on the table. "We cannot ignore this. They've outmaneuvered us at every turn. We need to strike back before they become too powerful." Councillor Tiren countered, his voice low and controlled. "Rash action will only escalate the situation. We need to understand their full strategy before making a decision." Lurok, feeling the pressure of the moment, found himself caught in a moral and strategic dilemma. His loyalty to the Council was being tested by the stark realization of Earth's true capabilities. The conflict was no longer a simple military engagement, but a complex game of strategy and perception. His respect for Sylvia, whose tactical brilliance had become evident, was growing. But so was his disillusionment with the Council's arrogance. In the command center, Sylvia's strategy extended beyond mere technological display. Her calculated reveal of Earth's capabilities was designed to send a clear message. Earth was not just a contender, but a player whose strength could reshape the balance of power. Sylvia understood that the revelation was a double-edged sword. It increased the stakes of the conflict, but it also provided an opportunity to redefine the terms of engagement. As the debate within the Council continued, Lurok's mind was a battleground of conflicting emotions and thoughts. He saw Sylvia not merely as a military leader, but as a strategist who had orchestrated a masterful display of power and control. Her approach was a testament to the complexity of the conflict, and Lurok's own beliefs and allegiances were being tested in ways he had not anticipated. The Council's response to Earth's revelation would be pivotal. The balance of power had shifted, and the course of the conflict was now uncertain. The Council was faced with a choice: to escalate the conflict further or to reassess their approach and seek a new equilibrium. As the session concluded, the Council's members were left to contemplate their next move. The revelation of Earth's technological advancements had set the stage for a new phase in the conflict, one that would challenge the very foundations of their power and perception. The stakes had never been higher, and the outcome remained uncertain. Lurok's transformation was evident in his demeanor. The once clear lines of loyalty and duty were now blurred by the complexity of the situation. He had come to see the conflict through a new lens, one that recognized the depth of Earth's strategy and the implications of their actions. His internal struggle mirrored the larger struggle unfolding on a galactic scale. Sylvia, in her command center, reflected on the events with a sense of cautious optimism. The turning point had been reached, but the path ahead was fraught with uncertainty. The balance of power had shifted, and the conflict had entered a new phase where every decision carried profound implications. Earth's revelation resonated through the Galactic Council, leaving an indelible mark on its members. The Grand Chamber, once bustling with urgent debate, now felt like a hollow shell of its former self. The weight of the recent events pressed heavily on every council member, their expressions a mixture of disbelief and contemplation. The revelation of Earth's true power had not only disrupted their plans, but also stirred a profound existential crisis within their ranks. For General Sylvia O'Neill, the aftermath was a moment of deep reflection. She stood alone in the dimly lit observation deck of Earth's command center, gazing out at the void of space. The stars, once a distant tapestry of cosmic beauty, now seemed to mock the complexity of her situation. The burden of leadership weighed heavily on her, and the decision to reveal Earth's advanced capabilities had set in motion a chain of events that would redefine the future of both Earth and the Galactic Council. Sylvia's thoughts wandered back to the path that had led to this moment. The strategic decisions, the calculated reveals, and the delicate balance of power all had been part of a grander plan. Yet, in the solitude of the observation deck, she found herself grappling with the moral implications of her actions. The very power that had been her tool for negotiation now seemed to cast a shadow over her conscience. Her reflection was interrupted by a soft beep, signaling a secure communication link. The message was from Lurok. The once clear lines of duty and loyalty he had followed were now blurred by the complexity of the conflict. Their conversation, once a mere exchange of tactical information, had evolved into a profound dialogue on morality and destiny. In the Galactic Council's central chamber, Lurok's internal conflict was reaching a crescendo. The Council's latest deliberations were fraught with tension as members debated their next move. The revelation of Earth's power had not only exposed their vulnerability, but also forced a reckoning with their own hubris. Lurok's role in these discussions was increasingly fraught with personal anguish as he navigated the chasm between his duty to the Council and his growing respect for Earth's resilience. Lurok's private quarters were a stark contrast to the grandeur of the Council chamber. The room was sparsely furnished, adorned only with a few artifacts from his home world. As he paced back and forth, he found himself wrestling with questions that transcended mere strategy. The recent events had prompted a deep introspection into the nature of power, control, and the ethics of their conflict with Earth. A message from Sylvia appeared on his communication device, her image projected in soft blue light. "Lurok," she began, her voice steady yet tinged with the gravity of their situation. "The revelation of our technology was not just a statement of power, but a mirror reflecting the choices we've all made. I hope you can see beyond the immediate confrontation and understand the broader implications of our actions." Lurok listened, the weight of her words resonating with his own internal struggles. The clash of wills had shifted from a tactical confrontation to a deeper, philosophical discourse. He responded thoughtfully, "Sylvia, your revelation has indeed changed the game. It has forced us to confront the limits of our power and the morality of our actions. I am struggling to reconcile my duty to the Council with the truths I have witnessed." Sylvia's response was contemplative. "We are all shaped by our choices, Lurok. The power we wield carries responsibility, and the line between defense and tyranny is often blurred. It is not just about who is stronger, but about how we wield that strength and the ethical implications of our decisions." As their conversation unfolded, both Sylvia and Lurok found themselves engaged in a profound philosophical meditation. The battle that had once seemed like a straightforward contest of strength had transformed into a complex dialogue on destiny, morality, and self-mastery. The consequences of the conflict rippled through the galaxy, leaving a profound impact on the political and social landscape. The Galactic Council was forced to confront its own failings and reassess its approach to power and diplomacy. The aftermath of the battle had exposed vulnerabilities within the Council's structure, prompting a reevaluation of their strategies and alliances. In the quiet moments of reflection, Sylvia and Lurok both found themselves grappling with the implications of their actions. For Sylvia, the burden of leadership was accompanied by a deep sense of responsibility. The choices she had made were not just tactical, but also moral, and she was keenly aware of the weight of her decisions. Lurok's transformation was evident in his demeanor. The conflict had forced him to confront his own beliefs and values, challenging the very foundations of his loyalty to the Council. His respect for Sylvia had evolved into a deeper understanding of the complexities of power and control. The galaxy, once a stage for a grand conflict, now stood on the brink of a new chapter. The battle had shifted from a mere clash of military might to a broader exploration of the nature of power and morality. The aftermath was not just about the immediate consequences, but about the long-term implications for both Earth and the Galactic Council. As Sylvia and Lurok continued their introspective journey, the galaxy watched and waited. The turning point had been reached, and the path ahead was uncertain. The choices made in the aftermath of the conflict would shape the future of galactic relations, defining the balance of power and the ethical framework within which they operated. In the quiet of their respective worlds, Sylvia and Lurok faced the daunting task of navigating the complex interplay of power, morality, and destiny. The echoes of their actions reverberated through the galaxy, setting the stage for a new phase in their ongoing struggle. The conflict had transformed, but the questions it raised about the nature of power and control remained as relevant as ever. The Galactica, once a symbol of unity and order in the galaxy, now buzzed with the hum of discord and apprehension. The recent revelations from Earth had sent shockwaves through the Galactic Council, fracturing its once solidified front. The ornate hallways of the Council's grand citadel, usually filled with a steady hum of bureaucratic efficiency, now echoed with sharp exchanges and hushed whispers. The Council chambers, with their imposing architecture and intricate designs, seemed to close in on the representatives, reflecting the escalating tension. In the heart of the citadel, a clandestine meeting took place. The room, dimly lit and sparsely furnished, held only a round table surrounded by representatives from various factions. The air was thick with a sense of urgency and uncertainty. The representatives, each wearing the insignia of their respective factions, exchanged heated glances. The unity that had once defined the Galactic Council was now a mere shadow, replaced by the tumultuous churn of political maneuvering. Lurok, sitting at the head of the table, found himself in an unfamiliar role. As a trusted diplomat, he had always been the voice of moderation. Now, his position had evolved into one of a mediator and advocate for peace, a role he had not anticipated. His recent experiences with Earth had led him to question the Council's aggressive stance. His once clear allegiance was now clouded by doubts and moral dilemmas. "Your Excellencies," Lurok began, his voice calm but firm, "the situation we face is unprecedented. The power displayed by Earth was not just a show of strength, but a testament to their resolve and capability. We must consider the implications of escalating this conflict." Across from him, a representative from the Proxima faction, known for its hardline stance, slammed his hand on the table. "Their display was a direct challenge to our authority. We cannot simply back down now. To do so would be to undermine the very principles upon which the Council is built." Lurok met the representative's gaze with a steady look. "Retaliation might prove disastrous. We have only glimpsed a fraction of Earth's capabilities. Their military prowess is not just in their technology, but in their strategic thinking. An all-out war could lead to catastrophic consequences for both sides." The debate was intense, with each faction presenting their viewpoint. The Centauri faction, known for its moderate stance, sided with Lurok, advocating for diplomacy and negotiation. The tension between the factions was palpable, each maneuvering for advantage while struggling to maintain their position within the fracturing council. The fractured council mirrored the tumultuous situation on Earth. Inside Earth's command center, Sylvia O'Neill faced her own set of challenges. The internal political landscape was as volatile as the external one. The revelation of Earth's technological capabilities had spurred political factions to vie for influence. The show of strength had, paradoxically, both consolidated some of Sylvia's support and intensified opposition from those who feared the potential for further conflict. Sylvia's strategy had always been to manage perceptions carefully, both within Earth and in its interactions with the Galactic Council. Now, her ability to navigate this intricate web of politics was being tested as never before. Meetings with her advisors were marked by heated discussions and strategic recalibrations. In her private office, Sylvia reviewed reports and strategic analyses. The data on the Council's political shifts was crucial to her next moves. Her eyes fell on a detailed map of the galaxy, with various markers indicating the political affiliations of different factions. The map, once a tool for simple strategic planning, now represented a complex web of alliances and rivalries. Her chief advisor, Commander Hargrave, stood beside her, his expression grim. "The Council is fracturing, Sylvia. The factions are not just debating, they're actively positioning themselves for the potential of conflict. We need to prepare for every scenario." Sylvia nodded, her mind racing through the possible outcomes. "And what of Lurok? His position is precarious. He could be a key player in either promoting peace or escalating the conflict. We need to understand his motives and the extent of his influence." Hargrave's response was pragmatic. Lurok's advocacy for peace might stem from a genuine desire to avoid war, but it could also be a strategic move to protect his own standing within the Council. We must be cautious and not underestimate his potential for manipulation. As the political storm continued to brew, both Sylvia and Lurok found themselves in a delicate balancing act. The stakes were high, and each decision carried weight far beyond their immediate concerns. Sylvia's ability to manage Earth's internal politics while maintaining a strategic edge over the Council was crucial. Likewise, Lurok's role as a mediator was pivotal in determining whether the conflict would be resolved through diplomacy or devolve into full-scale warfare. The tension within the Galactic Council grew as factions realigned and alliances shifted. Secret negotiations and backroom deals became the norm, with representatives jockeying for position. The Council's formal sessions, once characterized by decorum and procedure, were now marred by shouting matches and heated arguments. Lurok's internal struggle was evident in his every interaction. His conversations with other council members were fraught with the weight of his dual role. He was a diplomat trying to maintain peace and a representative from a faction grappling with its own ambitions and fears. His position was precarious, and he knew that his actions in the coming days could determine the fate of the galaxy. Sylvia, on her end, faced the dual challenge of managing Earth's position while preparing for the possibility of further conflict. Her leadership was tested not just in terms of military strategy, but also in navigating the complex web of political alliances and internal dissent. The revelations and the subsequent fallout had revealed the fragility of alliances and the volatile nature of interstellar politics. The Galactic Council, having exhausted its diplomatic avenues and desperate to reassert its dominance, orchestrated what was to be its final gamble. The Grand Fleet assembled in the shadow of a distant star system, a spectacle of shimmering ships and flashing lights, primed for a decisive strike. The Council's unity had been tested and frayed, but in this last act, their hope was to quash Earth's newfound strength and restore their faltering authority. On Earth, the atmosphere was electric with a charged sense of inevitability. Sylvia O'Neill, having anticipated the Council's final move, was deeply engrossed in the most complex strategic maneuvering of her career. Her command center was abuzz with activity, the massive screens displaying real-time data and strategic projections. Her officers, each a master in their field, operated with a precision born from countless drills and simulations. As the Council's fleet edged closer, Sylvia's eyes were locked on the holographic map of the galaxy. Her mind was a whirlwind of calculations and probabilities. The time for mere defense had passed. Earth was now prepared to demonstrate its full capacity. She knew that every decision made now would define not just the outcome of this battle, but the future of Earth's place in the galactic order. General O'Neill, Commander Hargrave's voice cut through the hum of activity, bringing Sylvia back to the present. We're receiving final reports from our outer defense lines. The Council fleet is on approach, and our traps are set. Sylvia nodded, her face a mask of focused determination. Good. Initiate the final phase of the plan. Ensure our forces are in position. We need to demonstrate our capability without overextending ourselves. The command center erupted into a flurry of action as orders were executed with precision. The intricate web of defenses and traps Earth had laid was about to come into play. The Council's fleet, confident in its overwhelming numbers, was unprepared for the full scope of Earth's preparation. The initial clash was as intense as it was breathtaking. The Council fleet advanced with a barrage of weaponry, their ships slicing through the void with laser precision. Earth's forces responded not with brute force, but with calculated strikes. The initial exchanges were a display of raw power and strategic finesse. Each side unleashed a series of complex maneuvers, with Earth's forces carefully managing their resources and positioning. The space around the battlefield became a swirling vortex of energy and motion. Sylvia's tactical brilliance was on full display. Her strategy involved drawing the Council fleet into a carefully crafted trap, where Earth's most advanced weaponry would be used to its fullest extent. It was a high-stakes gamble designed to demonstrate Earth's strength while minimizing unnecessary destruction. The philosophical weight of the battle was not lost on Sylvia. As she watched the conflict unfold, her thoughts were filled with reflections on the nature of survival and the morality of warfare. Victory came with a price, and she was acutely aware of the toll it would exact. The battle was more than just a struggle for dominance. It was a profound statement about the cost of power and the responsibilities it carried. Meanwhile, Lurok was in the thick of the Council's final assault. His role had shifted from a detached diplomat to a frontline observer of the conflict's brutal reality. As he witnessed the battle, his internal struggle reached a peak. The Council's aggression was met with Earth's sophisticated countermeasures, and he was forced to confront the stark reality of Earth's capabilities. Lurok's perspective had evolved drastically. His initial view of Earth as a minor player had been shattered by the display of strategic mastery and technological prowess. Now, as he witnessed the culmination of Earth's final gambit, he grappled with his own role in the conflict. The moral questions about loyalty, duty, and the justification of war were at the forefront of his mind. In the command center, Sylvia's attention was fixed on a central display. The holographic projections showed the Council fleet being methodically drawn into the trap. Earth's forces, coordinated with near perfection, executed a series of precise attacks. Each strike was calculated to maximize impact while preserving Earth's strategic advantage. The battle reached its climax as Earth's final move was executed. A massive energy beam, a technological marvel of unprecedented scale, was unleashed. The beam cut through the space with a brilliance that was both awe-inspiring and devastating. It was a display of raw power that left the Council fleet reeling, their ships scrambling to respond to the overwhelming force. As the beam's effects rippled through the fleet, Sylvia's mind was a maelstrom of thoughts. The philosophical implications of the battle were not lost on her. The display of power was a necessary demonstration, but it also raised profound questions about the nature of control and the ethical boundaries of warfare. She had orchestrated the battle with the intent of securing Earth's position, but the cost of victory was an ever-present consideration. Lurok, observing from his vantage point, was deeply shaken. The sheer scale of Earth's technological prowess and strategic execution was beyond anything he had anticipated. The battle had forced him to confront the reality of the Council's position and the complexities of interstellar diplomacy. His internal conflict reached its zenith as he struggled with the realization of Earth's strength and his own role in the conflict. As the final moments of the battle played out, the Council fleet, battered and disoriented, began to retreat. Earth's forces had achieved a decisive victory, but the cost of the battle weighed heavily. The aftermath of the conflict was a sobering reminder of the price of power and the responsibilities it entailed. The command center fell silent as the last of the Council's ships vanished from view. The victory was hard-won, but it came with a profound sense of introspection. Sylvia and her team knew that the battle was not just a demonstration of strength, but a pivotal moment in the galaxy's history. In the quiet that followed, Sylvia took a moment to reflect on the broader implications of the conflict. The battle had secured Earth's place in the galactic order, but it had also raised deep questions about the nature of power, survival, and the future of interstellar relations. The victory was a significant achievement, but it came with the weight of moral and philosophical considerations. Lurok, meanwhile, faced a pivotal moment of reckoning. The final gamble had forced him to confront the harsh realities of interstellar diplomacy and warfare. His future role in the Council was uncertain, and he was left to grapple with the complexities of his own beliefs and allegiances. The Galactic Council's last assault was a testament to both their desperation and their belief in their own invincibility. For weeks, their fleets had gathered, a constellation of might that stretched across the cold expanse of space. The Council's grand strategy was clear: annihilate Earth's capacity to resist and restore their supremacy. Yet Earth, ever the enigmatic player in the galactic arena, had prepared for this moment with a meticulous precision that now became apparent. On Earth, the atmosphere within the command center was charged with a palpable tension. Sylvia O'Neill, the strategist behind Earth's elaborate preparation, stood at the heart of the operations. Her eyes, usually sharp with determination, were now clouded with the weight of her responsibility. The final gamble was not just a military maneuver, but a profound statement about the nature of power, control, and survival. The command center was a hive of activity. Officers and analysts moved with purpose, their focus unwavering as they executed the final phase of Earth's defensive strategy. The room's dim light cast an ethereal glow on the massive displays that showed the approaching Council fleet. The complex web of Earth's defenses, laid out in a dazzling array of advanced technologies and tactical traps, was ready for deployment. Sylvia's gaze was fixed on the central holographic projection, which detailed the intricate positioning of Earth's forces. The Council fleet, a formidable array of ships, was advancing with a confidence that bordered on arrogance. They believed Earth was on the brink of collapse, unaware of the strategic gambit Sylvia had set into motion. "Initiate the sequence," Sylvia commanded, her voice calm despite the storm of activity around her. "We have prepared for this moment. Ensure all units are in position." The command was executed with military precision. Hidden defense systems powered up, their dormant energy sources coming to life. The traps that had been set over weeks were now active, their purpose clear: to demonstrate Earth's strength and resolve without crossing the threshold into total destruction. In space, the Council fleet moved forward, its ships gliding silently through the void. Their sensors, designed to detect and intercept threats, were overwhelmed by the complexity of Earth's defenses. As they entered the designated engagement zone, the first wave of Earth's countermeasures was triggered. Energy pulses streaked through the void, slicing through the darkness with lethal precision. The Council ships, initially caught off guard, began to react, their shields flaring as they absorbed the energy impacts. The battle had begun, but it was not merely a clash of weapons. It was a carefully orchestrated display of strategic acumen and technological sophistication. Sylvia observed the unfolding conflict with a detached intensity. Her mind raced through the possibilities, calculating the outcomes of each maneuver. The initial exchanges were designed to test the Council's resolve and to gauge their reaction to Earth's capabilities. Every move was meticulously planned, every countermeasure precisely executed. The battle's intensity increased as Earth's forces demonstrated their technological superiority. Advanced weaponry, previously concealed, was revealed in a controlled manner. Energy beams, plasma projectiles, and precision-guided missiles painted a picture of Earth's military prowess. Yet, Sylvia's strategy was not just about showing strength. It was about communicating a message. "Prepare for the next phase," Sylvia directed her team. "We need to ensure they understand the full extent of our capabilities without pushing them to the brink of annihilation." The command was followed by a series of coordinated strikes. Earth's forces unleashed a sophisticated array of tactical maneuvers designed to showcase their prowess while avoiding excessive destruction. The Council fleet, now fully engaged, struggled to adapt to the unexpected level of resistance. As the battle raged on, Lurok observed from his vantage point on the Council's flagship. His role had shifted from a distant observer to an integral part of the conflict. The sight before him was both awe-inspiring and horrifying. The display of Earth's military might was beyond anything he had anticipated. The strategic brilliance and technological innovation were evident, but so were the costs of such power. Lurok's internal conflict reached a fever pitch. His loyalty to the Council was being tested in ways he had never imagined. The philosophical implications of Earth's display of power were profound. The conflict was not merely about winning a battle. It was about redefining the boundaries of power and control in the galaxy. On Earth, Sylvia was deep in thought as she navigated the battle. The strategy was working, but the price of victory was becoming increasingly apparent. The ethical questions surrounding the use of such advanced weaponry weighed heavily on her. The balance between demonstrating strength and avoiding unnecessary loss was delicate, and every decision she made had significant consequences. The final phase of the battle was approaching. Earth's forces prepared for their most decisive move. The Grand Energy Beam, a marvel of advanced technology, was ready to be deployed. The beam was designed to be both a demonstration of Earth's capabilities and a means of forcing the Council to reconsider their course of action. As the beam was unleashed, its brilliance illuminated the space around the battlefield. The energy beam cut through the void with a power that was both magnificent and terrifying. The Council fleet, already battered from the previous exchanges, was forced into a chaotic retreat. Sylvia watched as the beam's effects rippled through the Council fleet. The strategic intent was clear: to deliver a decisive blow that would force the Council to reassess their approach. The sight of the Council's ships retreating, their formations breaking apart, was a testament to the success of Earth's strategy. In the midst of the retreat, Lurok was consumed by a deep moral crisis. The spectacle of Earth's power had shattered his perceptions of the Council's superiority. The conflict had forced him to confront the reality of Earth's strength and the ethical implications of the battle. The final moments of the battle were marked by a somber realization. Earth had secured a decisive victory, but the cost of that victory was significant. The philosophical questions about power, control, and the morality of warfare were brought into sharp focus. The battle had demonstrated Earth's strength, but it had also highlighted the complexities of interstellar diplomacy and the price of dominance. As the command center settled into a state of reflective silence, Sylvia took a moment to consider the broader implications of the conflict. The victory was a critical achievement, but it came with a weight of responsibility. The questions of power, morality, and the future of interstellar relations loomed large, shaping the course of the galaxy's future. Lurok, now deeply conflicted, faced an uncertain future. The final gamble had forced him to confront the complexities of his own beliefs and allegiances. His role in the Council was in question, and his future actions would be influenced by the profound impact of the conflict. The atmosphere within the command center was electric as the final battle loomed. The Galactic Council's desperation had reached its zenith, and the fleet amassed in the cold vastness of space now loomed like a dark specter over Earth. The once unyielding confidence of the Council was now tinged with uncertainty, and Earth was poised to make its last stand, one that would redefine the balance of power in the galaxy. Sylvia O'Neill stood at the heart of the command center, her steely gaze fixed on the holo displays that mapped out the unfolding conflict. The room was a symphony of calculated chaos, every officer and technician immersed in their role as the battle unfolded. Sylvia's face, illuminated by the soft glow of the displays, was an enigma of calm determination, a reflection of the strategic brilliance she had orchestrated. "Deploy the drones," Sylvia ordered, her voice firm and measured. "Initiate the decoy sequences." The command was executed with precision. Hundreds of stealth drones, crafted to resemble Earth's military vessels, were released into space. They would create a confusing array of false signals and misleading readings, designed to mislead the Council's fleet and buy Earth's forces precious time. The Council's fleet, massive and formidable, advanced with a grandeur that was both awe-inspiring and intimidating. Their ships, sleek and technologically advanced, cut through the void like a well-oiled machine. Yet, beneath their surface of technological superiority, there was a growing realization that they were facing something beyond their initial expectations. As Earth's forces activated their defensive measures, the first wave of countermeasures began. Energy pulses, calibrated to disrupt and disorient, streaked through the emptiness of space. The Council ships, initially caught off guard, struggled to adapt to the unexpected resistance. Shields flared as they absorbed the impacts, and the battle commenced with a tense rhythm. Sylvia observed the skirmish with an unwavering focus. Each movement of Earth's forces was a calculated part of a larger strategy. The initial engagement was designed to test the limits of the Council's resolve and to assess their reaction to Earth's newfound strength. The goal was not just to win the battle, but to deliver a message, one that would resonate throughout the galaxy. In the Council's flagship, Lurok, the alien envoy who had been a central figure in the unfolding drama, watched with a mixture of awe and dread. The scale of Earth's response was staggering, a display of power that went far beyond anything he had anticipated. His role in the Council's military strategy had been primarily focused on gathering intelligence, but now he found himself at the heart of a conflict that was reshaping the galaxy. Lurok's thoughts were a turbulent storm. The sight before him was both magnificent and unsettling. Earth's technological prowess was on full display, a testament to their preparedness and ingenuity. Yet, the cost of such power was becoming increasingly apparent. The philosophical implications of the battle were profound, challenging his perceptions of power, control, and the nature of conflict. As the battle intensified, Sylvia's strategic brilliance was evident in every maneuver. The decoys were creating confusion among the Council's fleet, while Earth's forces executed a series of precise strikes. The goal was to demonstrate strength without provoking total annihilation. Sylvia's decisions were guided by a careful balance between showcasing Earth's capabilities and minimizing unnecessary destruction. The final phase of the battle approached. Earth's forces prepared to deploy their most advanced weaponry, a technological marvel designed to deliver a decisive blow. The energy beam, a testament to Earth's technological innovation, was ready for activation. Sylvia's fingers hovered over the controls, her mind racing through the implications of her next command. "Activate the main energy beam," Sylvia instructed, her voice steady. "Prepare for full deployment." The energy beam, a cylinder of brilliant light, erupted from Earth's defensive array. Its path cut through the darkness of space with a power that was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. The beam's effects were immediate and dramatic. The Council fleet, already battered from the earlier exchanges, was forced into a desperate retreat. Sylvia's gaze remained fixed on the holo-displays, tracking the retreat of the Council's ships. The strategic intent was clear: to deliver a message that would force the Council to reassess their approach. The sight of the Council fleet in disarray was a testament to the effectiveness of Earth's strategy. In the midst of the retreat, Lurok faced a profound moral crisis. The conflict had forced him to confront the reality of Earth's strength and the ethical implications of the battle. His role in the Council had been defined by loyalty and duty, but the spectacle before him was challenging those very principles. Lurok's internal struggle was mirrored by the chaotic aftermath of the battle. The Council's fleet, once a symbol of their dominance, was now a battered remnant of its former glory. The strategic brilliance of Earth's response had forced a reevaluation of the balance of power in the galaxy. On Earth, the aftermath of the battle was a time of reflection and somber realization. The victory was significant, but the cost was evident. The philosophical questions about power, morality, and the implications of their actions were brought into sharp focus. Sylvia and her team had achieved a decisive victory, but the implications for the future were complex and challenging. Sylvia took a moment to reflect on the broader implications of the conflict. The victory was a critical achievement, but it came with a weight of responsibility. The questions of power, morality, and the future of interstellar relations loomed large, shaping the course of the galaxy's future. Lurok, now deeply conflicted, faced an uncertain future. His role in the Council was in question, and his future actions would be influenced by the profound impact of the conflict. The final gamble had reshaped his understanding of the galaxy and forced him to confront the complexities of his own beliefs and allegiances. The final echoes of the battle reverberated through the galaxy, leaving behind a landscape scarred by conflict and hope. The battlefield, once a theater of cosmic strife, now lay quiet, its vast expanse a somber reminder of the cost of war. Earth stood at the threshold of a new era, victorious yet burdened with the weight of its choices. In the aftermath of the conflict, the people of Earth began the arduous process of rebuilding and reflection. The grandeur of their technological achievements had secured their place in the galactic order, but the moral and emotional toll of the victory was palpable. The victory, though significant, was tempered by the heavy realization of what it had taken to achieve it. Sylvia O'Neill, the commander whose strategic brilliance had turned the tide of the war, walked through the command center with a solemn demeanor. The walls, once vibrant with the energy of battle, now bore the weight of silence. The flickering holo-displays that had charted the course of the conflict now cast a muted glow over the room. Sylvia's thoughts were a tangle of reflection and contemplation. The victory had secured Earth's position, but it had come at a tremendous cost. The ethical questions that had been posed throughout the conflict now demanded answers. Power and control had been demonstrated, but at what price? Her gaze fell on the holo-display, which now depicted a galaxy in transition. The Galactic Council, once a monolithic entity of authority, was now fractured and reeling from the conflict. The consequences of the battle were beginning to ripple through the fabric of interstellar politics. Sylvia's reflection was interrupted by the arrival of Lurok. The alien envoy, who had been a central figure in the conflict, now approached with a sense of quiet resolve. His expression was one of deep contemplation, his alien features etched with the marks of introspection. The battle had changed him profoundly, and the path forward was uncertain. "General O'Neill," Lurok began, his voice carrying a weight of respect and regret. The Council's situation is precarious. They are fractured, and their authority is in question. The galaxy is facing a moment of profound change. Sylvia turned to face him, her eyes meeting his with a mixture of resolve and weariness. And what of us, Lurok? What of Earth? The victory has been hard-earned, Lurok said. But it has also set a new course for the galaxy. The power dynamics have shifted, and the future is uncertain. Your actions have reshaped the balance, but the questions of morality and the cost of power remain. Sylvia nodded, acknowledging the gravity of his words. The conflict had forced both sides to confront their beliefs and challenge their perceptions of power and control. The philosophical questions that had emerged were now at the forefront of their considerations. As Lurok departed, Sylvia stood alone, her thoughts drifting to the future. The galaxy was in a state of flux, and the path ahead would require careful navigation. The choices made during the conflict had set in motion a series of events that would shape the destiny of countless worlds. The emotional impact of the battle was profound. The victory was a testament to Earth's strength and resilience, but it was also a reminder of the human cost of such achievements. The soldiers who had fought and sacrificed, the civilians who had endured, and the leaders who had navigated the treacherous waters of conflict all bore the weight of the conflict's toll. In the quiet moments of reflection, Sylvia considered the broader implications of the conflict. The galaxy had witnessed a display of power that was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. The balance between power and morality had been tested, and the results were a complex tapestry of triumph and tragedy. The new dawn that followed the conflict was one of cautious optimism. The galaxy, though scarred by the recent events, now faced an opportunity for renewal and reformation. The Galactic Council's fractures presented a chance for new alliances and a reevaluation of interstellar relations. For Sylvia, the journey had been one of profound growth. She had faced the harsh realities of leadership and the burden of wielding immense power. Her role as a leader had been defined by strategic brilliance, but it was her ability to navigate the moral complexities of the conflict that had truly shaped her legacy. Lurok's journey had also reached a pivotal point. The conflict had forced him to confront the limits of his loyalty and the ethical dimensions of his actions. His transformation was a testament to the depth of the philosophical questions that the conflict had raised. As Earth embarked on its path toward rebuilding and reformation, the galaxy looked toward a future that was both uncertain and hopeful. The lessons learned from the conflict would shape the course of interstellar relations and guide the development of new alliances and understandings.